Keeping it local, Brevard's very own Q102 FM.
Welcome back, Brevard and beyond. We have a special guest in the studio. And yes, I said studio because we are now vaccinated here at the Q, and you're welcome to come in if you have also had your vaccination. All right, now on to our special guest for the day, Duncan Lemay. Good afternoon, Duncan. How are you?
Hi, Miss Terina. It's wonderful to be in the studio, and I'm doing well.
It is great to have you on today. Now, for folks who may not know, we're cousins, like first cousins. And you are a talented musician. People are like, okay, yeah, he's your cousin, but just wait until they hear you. So you drove a little ways today. Where did you come from?
Oh, so I'm coming from Sylva, North Carolina, which is where I was born and raised. Actually picked the scenic route today, so I chose to go across the Parkway and dive down through that 276 road and ultimately make it to Brevard that way. And it was a beautiful drive.
Wow, yeah. Are the trees all in bloom up there yet?
Yes, we've got quite a few things blooming. Of course, it's much better in the lower parts of the mountains because, with higher elevation, you have less warm temperatures. But it looks like we've got some rosebuds up there, and we've also got some of the cherries, of course.
Yes.
And the dogwoods currently are the thing that are really blooming around here.
Oh, yeah, they sure are, Duncan. Wow. So now you have sent me a couple of tracks recently, and are these tracks that you have recently recorded?
Well, these both come from my time at Indiana University, so at this point they've aged a bit. They're probably about 2 years old. Most of the work I've been doing this past year has been for the church I work at, which is Sylva First United Methodist.
All right. And what do you do up at Sylva First United Methodist?
Well, that is my day job, and it's actually a great day job. It's a combination of audio-visual tech as well as doing music directing. So it's given me a lot of creative freedom and kind of kept me going during this pandemic, having an outlet for my music when so many in my field, have been kind of struggling to find an outlet.
Right. A lot of musicians have been having a rough time, but it gives the opportunity to make new music.
Exactly.
So you sent me this track called Sleeping Bear, and you have quite the story around it. Could you share that with our listening audience?
Oh, sure. So this is going to be a long story, just to warn you guys. But the inspiration behind this song actually comes from a specific place. And that place is actually Sleeping Bear Dunes National Park in Upper Michigan. And now, for those of you who don't know, this national park is essentially a collection of dunes that sits along the Michigan shoreline.
Yeah.
And within these dunes, there's this one specific dune that is kind of in the shape of almost like a bear crouched over. And if you look a little closer at it, you actually notice that it almost looks like the bear is sleeping kind of with like its head between its paws.
Aww.
Yeah. So if you look off from that dune, actually, there's another interesting feature that kind of plays in later. There are two islands. One is North Manitou and South Manitou, and they're not too far off. It's about maybe a mile offshore, which is pretty close.
Right.
But, a lot of your listening audience might wonder at this point, how did this musician who's born and raised in Western North Carolina from Sylva end up in Michigan and end up at this park of all places? And
Right. How did you end up out there, Duncan?
well, there's an interesting story to that. So during my time in college, I would do a lot of like summer internships and things. So one summer it was working as a camp counselor for a jazz camp in Connecticut. Another summer it was AV Tech. And as it so happens, this particular summer I ended up working as a classical recording engineer for Interlochen Center for the Arts.
Huh. That sounds like a pretty good job.
It was a great job. We had quite a bit of free time, and during that, I finally decided to go check out these dunes. All these people I worked with who had, been to the camp before or had been working at the Center for the Arts for a while kept talking about this place called Sleeping Bear and saying, it's a really great place to go. And there's not a lot to do up in Traverse or the Grand Michigan area,
Right.
Because it's mostly, you either go for the cherries, which are fantastic in summer, or you go for the lake. Or maybe you go see this Sleeping Bear Dunes and go play in the dunes. So ultimately, I decided I would try to make the trip up there. So I took a 45-minute drive outside of the Interlochen Center for the Arts on this winding road called Michigan 22 through backcountry and God knows where, and ultimately ended up at the visitor center for the Sleeping Bear Dunes itself. And this visitor center had the usual things you'd expect to find, such as exhibits about the wildlife and plants that called the dunes home, as well as an exhibit about how the dunes were formed through glacial activity.
Yes.
But the one thing that caught my attention there was actually the video that they had about the history of the dunes themselves. In it, they mention the legend of the sleeping bear, which is this Native American legend about essentially two bear cubs and their mother swimming across Lake Michigan to avoid fire and what would soon be famine in what is currently Wisconsin area.
Okay. Wow.
So ultimately, they're trying to swim across the lake, and just spoiler alert, not everyone makes it, so it's a bit of a tragedy and a bit of a bummer. But, the first time I heard this, it really resonated with me. I was like, wow, this is a very poignant and striking story. So I decided, hey, I'd like to try to, make a song out of this eventually. And so I went through the day just with that in the back of my head saying, when am I going to do it or am I not? I made the 6-mile drive from the visitor center over to the dunes themselves, and it's been a wonderful day, looking at the beautiful lake shore and also seeing all the wildlife, and then, of course, making the dune climb, which is this 6-story tall mountain of sand that you climb up as, like a rite of passage and get sand in your shoes. It's the tourist thing to do if you're there. And when I got back to Interlachen that evening, I decided, I'm going to write a song. This place is beautiful. I want more people to know about it and maybe the story behind it.
Wow.
So that's what I did. I looked up online and tried to find the most detailed version of the legend I could find.
Yes.
And that was the basis for the lyrics. From there, it was just, trying to make them fit within the musical context I gave it. And I'm really proud of this song for this particular reason. The legend itself, if you read the version I used, is pretty much verbatim what the lyrics are. There were very few changes to make it fit.
Huh.
And it was tricky, but I think it still created a very musical piece despite that limitation.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and give it a listen, shall we? Here's
Absolutely.
Sleeping Bear with Duncan Lemay.
Wasn't your choice to make this trip across the water when the forest fires burned into the waves, plunged to bear cubs and a mother, hoping to swim to calmer shores. The rubble, ash and dust they soon put behind them, knowing famine was to come. A leap of faith the mother took, not knowing how far the journey lies. Deep blue waves on the change, shifting sands, the waters rearrange. Dreams about you crumble to the waves. Through the long day you swam, the shoreline soon did vanish. The great lakes extended on. And to your cubs you said that east lies better holdings, if we can make it till the dawn. Sunset, dusk and dark soon made it hard to see, and the moon was new that night. Soon you realized that your cubs had slipped away out of your sight. Change, shifting sands, the waters rearrange. A place where now so many rest, and the dreams about you crumble to the but still there was no sight of land, nor the cubs that slipped behind. It wasn't till late that day you reached the other shore, watching helplessly from there. As first one cup, then the other sank beneath the waves, to rest in watery sand. But the Great Spirit was moved by the bravery, raising islands from their graves. As for the mother, the Spirit laid a slumber unafraid, knowing that your heart would never mend. Manito from the sky did descend, laid over you a blanket of sand, making you the sleeping bear, this beautiful land. Deep blue waves on the change, shifting sands, the waters rearrange. A place where now you make your rest, 'cause the dreams about you crumble to the waves. Oh, oh, oh. Can they crumble to the waves? Let them crumble, let them crumble to the waves.
Sleeping Bear with Duncan Lemay, who we have right here in our studio today. Hey, Duncan.
Hey again.
How's
Wonderful
it
to be
going?
here.
It is wonderful to have you, and now people believe me that you are a talented musician.
I'm trying.
So I would like to know who produced that song.
So production work and recording work was all done by me. This was during my college years, as I said before. Essentially, as far as like how that came together, it's an interesting story in itself. Just to give you, this will be shorter than that last story I gave. Oh my goodness.
It's all good.
But essentially, one night I got three musicians together, which were a drummer, a bassist, and myself, and we sat in one of the studios at our university, and essentially I brought three charts, and out of those three, I thought this is the one that's not going to work. I have no idea how to fill out drums and bass for this, but they sat down and played it, and it turned out to be the best one of the three we recorded, so it's the one I
Nice.
ultimately kind of moved forward with.
Nice. So who else is in that track?
So originally, it started out with, as I said, bass, piano, and drums and vocals. So that was Stefan Lethe on bass. He's a fantastic bassist. He's currently actually in New Orleans, of all places. Likewise, the drummer, Tanner Gus, who is fantastic as a drummer and pretty much nailed that in one take like they both did, he's currently in New Orleans as well. Some of the surprises were after I got those parts done. You know, I always like to make my production sound full and rich. I realized we needed more layers to kind of make it all kind of come together. So
Right.
I added some guitars. And originally my plan was to do like, you know, an acoustic guitar and electric, which is your kind of classic pairing.
Right.
But the guy who walked into the studio asked to play acoustic guitar. All he had was a classical acoustic guitar, which, you know, has nylon strings. So it's a bit of a different sound.
Yeah.
And at first I was like, okay, is this going to work? But, he figured out his place in the track. And I was like, wow, this is a really cool texture I would have never thought of.
Right.
And just out of pure chance, we ended up with classical guitar on that track, and it just kind of gives it a nice little like warm edge to it. It's very interesting.
Nice. So you have an education in music production.
Yes. So at Indiana University, I studied two things. Those were jazz piano and audio production / recording arts, and those were my 2 degrees.
Oh, that comes in handy. So
The best of both worlds.
Yeah. So you get to do your own music production. Do you finalize the tracks as well?
Yes, so I do the mixing, editing, and ultimately kind of mastering, if you want to call it that.
Wow, that's a talent that I don't have. That's great. So you have so many musically talented friends. Did we mention all their names there? Classical guitarist?
Classical guitarist is Mike Reardon, and then the guy who's playing electric throughout, which is more of a texture. If you're listening on good headphones, you can hear it, but if you're listening maybe out on your car system, you might have missed it, is Nathan Roseboom. So that's everyone who was in that track.
All righty, we got them all covered here. Now, you sent me another track here called Spotlight. Do we have a lead-up story to this one as well?
Oh, sure. So, Spotlight, unlike the last one, I don't write all sad songs like that.
Oh.
This one is happy, energetic, and hopeful, and it specifically deals with the lives of performing artists and musicians in general. If you're part of these fields, you know that as you work to make a career in them, you have to take a lot of different odd gigs, a lot of jobs, and a lot of auditions, and this song really just sort of speaks to that.
Oh, wow. So let's go ahead and give it a listen, shall we?
Absolutely.
Here's Spotlight with Duncan Lemay.
Driven to madness by the life inside the screen. Living in sadness as you try to chase that dream. One week it's Elvis and the next a beauty queen. It's such a vision that she hopes to intervene, but that's where you're bound, and soon you will be dancing beneath that spotlight. And way above the ground, your feet will walk on clouds as you dance the night away. Dance the night away. Oh, dance the night away. Dance the night away. Whoa, oh, oh, oh. Soon as the phone rang, she packed her stuff to go. Is this the big break? Hard to say and hard to know. Oh, 1 week is New York and the next a Dallas show. She's driving that turnpike in spite of winter snow. 'Cause fame's where you're bound, and soon you will be dancing beneath that spotlight. And way above the ground, your feet will walk on clouds as you dance the night away. Dance the night away. Dance the night away. Dance the night away. Whoa, whoa. Will her dreams be there in the morning? Will her life be full in the night? Will she make a lasting impression? Will she slowly fade from sight? Lights from the cameras fall upon her shaded face. On the red carpet, she has style and she has grace. Dark nights and bright lights, now the end has come to your chase. But you're working hard now, trying to keep up with the pace. But fate's where you're bound, and soon you will be dancing beneath that spotlight. And way above the ground, your feet will walk on clouds as you dance the night. 'Cause fate's where you're bound, and soon you will be dancing beneath that spotlight. And way above the ground, your feet will walk on clouds as you dance the night away. Dance the night away. Dance the night away. Dance the night away. Whoa, whoa.
Duncan Lemay with Spotlight. Wow, Duncan, so that's another one of your tracks right there. Beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I love that. So you did all the production there as well?
Yep, and saxophonist on that is the only person I guess I'll mention due to time constraints, and that's Garrett Fasig, and he's fantastic.
Alrighty. Right. So where can we find your music nowadays?
Well, nowadays, currently I'm on YouTube. That's been my main sort of platform of release, and there's a lot of great projects up there, Christmas covers, and some of them even have videos with them, which makes them even more fun.
All right. And are you involved with any recent projects?
Yes, so I'm currently actually, I guess, a new member of the Blue Ridge Big Band. They just picked me up. I'm sorry, most of the stuff I've been playing out is jazz, so none of these are going to be like pop gigs. I haven't found a band to play this stuff with me in this area yet.
Oh, you will. There's so many talented musicians, and they're coming out now that the pandemic is kind of letting off a little bit. So let's see here. You got any upcoming gigs?
Yeah, so generally in Silva, if you ever make it out that way, which I know is a little ways from here, about an hour and a half, I play Wednesday nights at the Nantahala Brewing Company with a cast of excellent jazz musicians, Michael Collings, Micah Thomas, and the rest of the house band. Also on Sundays, every other Sunday, there's this restaurant called Ilda's, and I play an acoustic gig with a saxophonist and a fantastic vocalist there. So those would be the two places.
All right, Duncan. So, folks, look for Duncan Lemay through YouTube. That's where you can find his music. Anywhere else where we can find you out and about in internet land?
That'd be pretty much it besides Facebook I can think of.
All right, we got it, Duncan. Well, thank you so much for coming in today. We really enjoyed your music, and we'll have to play more of it in the future. So have a safe drive back up to Silva, and we'll talk again soon.
Sure. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.
You're listening to the greatest hits of all time on Q102 FM and 1240 WSQL Brevard.